Hey everyone, Timothy Charlo here with Bayou Creative, and today we're sitting down with a very special guest. We're sitting down with Jesse Regan, who is a candidate for State Senate for District 23. I hope you stay tuned for all episodes. See you on the other side. Cheers. Jesse, thank you so much for sitting down with us for part two. And in case anyone missed part one, can you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Sure. My name is Jesse Regan. I'm a mortgage banker here in Lafayette. I also own some other businesses that, particularly in finance, hospitality, and real estate development. I've been a city councilman for 6 years, and I'm looking to take my talents and my gifts to a higher level and serve as the next senator for District 23, which encompasses Broussard, Youngsville, Milton, Lafayette, and Scott.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. So we're going to dive a little bit into your military lineage. So your dad and your grandfather both served in the military. Do you believe, and I can imagine the answer is yes, but I'd like you to tell everyone else, how has that experience growing up in a household with those two patriarchal individuals influenced your ability to run your businesses, your District 3, I believe it is, you were in District 23?
Yeah, so my parents were 15 and 16 when they had me.
Oh, wow.
So they chose life, which I'm forever grateful for, and I will always fight for the sanctity of life. So they knew that their journey would not be an easy one. So my father went into the military at a young age, and when he got out, we moved abroad, but when he got out, he went into law enforcement as well, because my uncle was in law enforcement, Lafayette Police Department, ultimately retired from there. So it's just, anybody that knows anything about law enforcement is you don't go into it for monetary gain. You go into it for duty and service.
Right.
So growing up in a law enforcement family, my dad didn't make a whole lot of money. So me and my mom, we would clean houses, we would clean office buildings just to help ends meet. And while my dad was on the make, because he had to work extra security just to make ends meet. So I remember growing up, my mom always said, she said, we may not be rich, but we're rich in love. Yeah. And I always remember that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about your dad.
Yep.
I've known him for quite some time, but I didn't know that story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and now he's worked his way up the corporate ladder, and he's done very well for himself over the last 31 years, and just very proud of his journey and my mother's journey as well, and our journey as a family.
You got into mortgage lending almost 2 decades ago at this point. Did you ever think that you would one day want to become a public servant? In becoming a public servant, what are you taking from running your businesses that leads you to this position?
A great question. So having moved around, I went to 14 different schools my entire life, because my dad was just in military, law enforcement, just moving around until we really settled in Broussard in 5th grade. But I moved around my entire life. So I always told myself is that when I'd have a family of my own, that I would want to establish roots in one community. And that's what we've done. And to get more involved in the community, 15 years ago, I started sitting on various boards: Broussard Chamber of Commerce, Broussard Economic Development Corporation, Broussard Civil Service Board, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I'm the current chairman of the Lafayette Industrial Development Board. So it's all those years of service that ultimately led me to want to seek public office. Okay. Because at the end of the day, we all run for public office to affect change. Yeah. And that's what I want to do, is affect change. And now I'm looking to go to the Capitol to affect change at a larger scale.
What principles can you pull from those leadership roles that will yield benefit to affecting change, as you stated in Baton Rouge?
One, I think that the principles that were instilled in me, through my parents, I have a great family unit. My in-laws are great, the best in-laws that you can ask for. My father-in-law has been civically involved for 40 years. He's always given back to a community that's given so much back to him. He's a pharmacist in New Iberia. So really getting into that family around 26 years ago, I really saw what it was like to give back to the community. Yeah. And that really instilled something in me that I wanted to give back as well. And that kind of led me to that. But as far as for principles, look, I grew up in a conservative household. We always made ends meet. We always lived within our means. We didn't come from, money. We worked our way. I've seen both sides of the tracks. Yeah. And it gives me a unique perspective, because whenever I go and I govern, I treat it like business, like I said before. Focus on customer service. We're going to focus on doing the right thing and always playing the long game. And I think that that's done me well in business, and that's the way that I'm going to govern as well, because you can never realize the fruits of your labor unless you plant the seed of the fruit tree.
Right.
So there's a lot of things we do in governing that we're not going to see the fruits of that labor until generations past. So it's very important that we get it right now and that we affect change now when we affect it the right way.
And it's funny you bring up fruit trees because I heard somebody say recently, the fruit tree doesn't grow fruit for itself, it grows fruit for other people. And I think that's a deep psychology to the public servant direction, really
Yeah,
and truly.
yeah.
From your faith perspective, how do you reconcile using your path with God and using the faith that you have to run business and now transitioning into politics? How do you intend to reconcile your faith or lead by faith in Baton Rouge?
Well, like I said, I've been married to my beautiful wife for 20 years, and we raised our three boys in the Catholic faith. They all go to Catholic school. I was a product of the public school system, but my wife and I chose to send our kids to Catholic school. So we raise our kids in the Catholic faith. And it just gives you really that moral compass that you need to be able to make the right decisions when the pressures of the world come down on you, especially the pressures of politics that come down on you. And I've been able to weather the storm here locally in Broussard, and I'm proud of the work that I've done in Broussard. And I know that when I get to the Capitol, that those same principles and my faith will assist me in doing the right thing and always playing the long game.
So Jesse, what could, with the faith that you just talked about in raising your three boys in a household of conservative and Christian value, are there any specific conservative reforms that you plan on championing when you get to Baton Rouge?
Sure. So there's a quote that often resonates with me, especially in this campaign, and it's that we cannot fix what we will not face. And I think that we are in the midst of a movement, nationally and statewide. We have the most conservative governor that we've ever had. We have super majorities in both chambers, the Senate and the House. So if we're going to face those changes, now is the time to face those changes. There's no excuse for us not to go in there and have true conservative reform and continue to fight for our constitutional rights, fight for the sanctity of life, fight for our police officers and our veterans, right size our government, right size our government spending, and to really bolster the private sector. So it all works hand in hand. And I really think we need to focus on insurance reform as well, because we've tackled education reform, we've tackled tax reform, we've tackled criminal justice reform, and all of that is great, but all of that means nothing if we can't afford to live here.
And this is something you've spoken about in part one, where we had this mass exodus of, I think you said 40,000 people leaving the state.
Correct.
I didn't realize the number was even that high.
Yes.
So that creates an imbalance,
Yes.
from the purview of understanding.
Correct. We have to get our insurance under control. As I walk around my district, that's the number one concern right now, is their insurance premiums, especially if they're in a coastal parish. I'm a mortgage banker, so I've seen that this has been a perfect storm of rising interest rates, rising costs, rising insurance. It's almost making home affordability just not possible.
Right.
So we really need to get insurance under control, because we need our citizens and our neighbors to be able to afford to live here, because all this other reform is a moot point if we don't have any citizens living here.
Agree completely. Jesse, thank you. There's so much more to dive into.
Yeah.
Can I please have you for a part 3?
Sure, no problem.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you
you
so much. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Jesse Regan. For you to stay up to date on when the next episode comes out, I need you to smash that like button, crush that subscribe button, and then ring the notification bell so you'll know what's coming next. Cheers.